Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suiswiki. Coming up, Papua New Guinea, a pawn in geopolitical battle, also the tug-of-war over next year's COP host, and
we're so thankful even when we are away from home, especially this young generation.
Celebrating Tuvalu Language Week in Aotearoa. A former military chief in Papua New Guinea claims the country is a pawn in a pivotal defence treaty it approved with Australia. Major General Jerry Singirok says PNG is caught up in a geopolitical battle between the US and China with little benefit to Papua New Guineans. Under the treaty, Australia and PNG are obliged to come to each other's aid in the event of a military attack. Margot Staunton has more.
PNG's Prime Minister James Marape says the mutual pact will significantly boost its defence and security partnership with Australia. It will also mean up to 10,000 Papua New Guineans could serve with the Australian Defence Force under dual arrangements. The treaty was endorsed by Cabinet and still requires ratification from both nations' parliaments. However, Major General Singirok says it goes against PNG's foreign policy of friends to all, enemy to none.
The biggest concern is who is the enemy? Do we have a combined or common enemy? I say no. China is not even our enemy. China is our trading partner, and we should be very, very careful.
He believes Australia is acting on behalf of the US.
And I always suspect that Australia is a proxy to US greater global interest in relation to a possible threat from the north, and the north threat is mainly China.
He also added,
it's a very, very cunning approach using Australia as the proxy for USA. I mean, they already have an ANZUS treaty to work on, and the best that they can do is to form another treaty with Papua New Guinea to consolidate themselves.
Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the two nations are close neighbours and friends, and the treaty will elevate this to a formal alliance. However, Mr Singirok says Australia will benefit far more than Papua New Guinea.
You don't need to be a rocket scientist to know what the treaty is all about. It's all about seeking alliance with the smaller Pacific nations. Papua New Guinea offers a strategic geographical location. It's a midpoint between Australia, the 7th Fleet in Hawaii.
Mr Singirok says for Papua New Guineans, there are many unanswered questions.
Only Canberra and Washington knows what's happening, and I think in the absence of a good analysis or debate, Papua New Guinea government will become gullible, and these are signs and symptoms of state fragility.
RNZ Pacific's PNG correspondent Scott Wade says the idea of integrating the two defence forces is a contentious issue among commentators there.
The integrity and the independence of the Papua New Guinea Defence Force has to be maintained, and to have the PNG Defence Force integrated into the Australian Defence Force doesn't look good for Papua New Guinea's sovereignty and integrity.
Mr Wade added that the treaty may also have wider implications for PNG.
In diplomatic circles, China has always been a partner, a friend, and this agreement creates new enemies for Papua New Guinea.
Scott Wade says some former military commanders believe the treaty will create a constitutional crisis and it could be challenged in court. He says they believe wider consultation is needed between all the parties and stakeholders involved in national security.
Feels like a unilateral decision by the National Executive Council in serving Australia's interests. That's how many people are putting it.
Anthony Albanese says he's looking forward to signing the treaty with PNG's Prime Minister soon. The accord will be front and centre of debate at next month's parliamentary session in PNG.
Now, looking back on this week's news stories, I'm joined by RNZ Pacific's Morning Bulletin editor, Christina Persico. Okay, we're going to start with looking at the UN climate talks, known as COP. And Christina, there's a tug of war for hosting next year's summit, right?
That's right. So Australia and Turkey are both wanting to host COP31 next year. Australia has backing from several Pacific nations. There's a feeling that bringing the COP down to the region in a shared hosting arrangement with Australia would allow Pacific countries to show everyone the climate impacts they are grappling with. However, Turkey is unwilling to back down. It has proposed sharing the presidency with Australia, but this is apparently not allowed. There's also reports of an idea that would see Australia holding the presidency, but agreeing to quote-unquote split hosting rights with Turkey. So officials and ministers would attend COP events in both countries. Both of them could actually lose hosting rights if they don't come to a diplomatic resolution, with the summit likely to go to the UN offices in Bonn in Germany. The final decision is expected by the end of this year's summit, COP30, which is in Brazil next month.
Just staying on Australia, they have a security agreement with Papua New Guinea, which has now been ratified?
Yes, this is known as the Puk-Puk Treaty. The two Prime Ministers say the Puk-Puk Treaty will elevate the defence relationship between Papua New Guinea and Australia to an alliance. The deal would recognise that an armed attack on either country would be a danger to the peace and security of both. Other principles of this treaty include what they called their shared ambition to establish a recruitment pathway so Papua New Guinea citizens can go into the Australian Defence Force.
I also understand that there's drug concerns in Papua New Guinea.
Yes, so this was in the local paper, the Post-Courier, earlier in the week. PNG's Deputy Police Commissioner, Donald Yamasombi, says the country is estimated to be sitting on a dangerous stockpile of illegal drugs, as much as 3 tonnes. He's warning international cartels see PNG as a convenient gateway into regional markets, and PNG is strategically located 30 minutes from the Australian coast. He says the danger is not only in the trafficking networks, but also in the risk of drugs entering the local communities. Of course, drug trafficking is not a new issue in the Pacific region. Last month, a Lieutenant Colonel, Rodrigo Dutton, from the Rio de Janeiro State Military Police spoke to the ABC. He's been dealing with illegal trafficking for almost 28 years, and he says cartels will likely keep targeting Pacific countries which have weaker border controls.
We've been hearing this week about the US having budget problems, but Samoa as well.
Yeah, so Samoa's head of state has declared a 30-day state of emergency due to a financial crisis. This was triggered by the failure to pass an appropriation bill. The emergency budget will allow the government to access funds from the Treasury to ensure the government operations can continue. This all stemmed from the failure to pass the budget earlier in the year, which of course led to the early election. Parliament is set to meet in the second week of October to table its main budget.
Okay, and let's quickly look at the health updates in the region. What's been happening there?
There's a couple of diseases putting people on alert in the region at the moment. In Vanuatu, it's whooping cough. The health authority says unvaccinated children are at risk as a whooping cough outbreak hits Eromango Island in Tawhia and Efate in Shefa. The Ministry of Health has reported 179 cases from those areas. Back to Papua New Guinea, the World Health Organization says wastewater testing shows polio is still around, but so far there is only the one reported symptomatic case with paralysis. In Aotearoa here, there have been measles cases reported in Northland and one in Queenstown as well. I imagine health authorities in the region will be keeping a close eye on this, given what happened with measles spreading from New Zealand to Samoa in 2019. In Samoa itself, the Ministry of Health says there's a 7th death from dengue fever being recorded and more than 14,000 cases since January. But in happier news, Te Marae Ora is hopeful the Cook Islands is on the verge of eliminating dengue on Rarotonga. They've only had one new case recorded in the past 2 weeks and none in the outer islands.
Me taki ma'ata, Christina. That's Christina Persico, our RNZ Pacific Bulletins editor, with our news wrap. Over the past year, a group of tā-moko artists have studied more than 200 toi moko, or Māori ancestral heads at Te Papa, with the hope of identifying their iwi and eventually returning them home. The collective put some of what they've learned from the toi moko into practice at Te Matatuhi, a 3-day event where the public got the chance to view moko kanohi, or facial tattooing in action. RNZ Māori news journalist Pokere Paiwai was there.
At Te Papa's Rongomarairoa Marae, a group has gathered to view the practice of tā-moko up close. Usually, moko papa, or gatherings to apply moko, are only attended by the recipient's family and iwi. Te Atiawa leader Kura Moeahu is one of the people going under the needle, with both him and his wife having their moko touched up.
This is about a message to our moko puna and say, it is okay. to wear kauai, it is okay to wear moko. Nan and Koro have got it, we got your back.
And for the tamariki, the chance to have their faces painted with tā moko. Ringa whāo or moko practitioner Johnny Brooking is one of those doing the tattooing. She spoke with some tourists who felt honoured to see the moko being done, but she admits some recipients have been anxious to receive their moko in such a public forum. So both they and the practitioner have to do some mental preparation.
I'm looking around over the past 2 days and I've had a chance to sort of have a bit of downtime and go around. They've all been toe within themselves and just, taken it in their stride.
But this public display of tā moko is about something much deeper. It's about reclaiming and repatriating toi moko, something the Karanga Aotearoa program has been doing for the last 20 years. While Western records are scarce, the markings themselves reveal another layer of knowledge. Sir Derek Lardeli is the chair of Te Uhi a Mataora, the Tā Moko Arts Committee of Toi Māori Aotearoa. He led the research into toi moko and says despite the dark history surrounding them, it's a visual reminder of where tā moko should be going.
What we are learning from the patterns and from the processes that were undertaken by our old people to preserve the identity of those ancestors, it becomes an important part of who we are. Yes, it was a dark part of our history, but it also had a lot of light on it.
Derek Lardeli says some of the tattooing work on the toi moko would be hard to match with an electric needle.
These ancestors were able to produce artwork at that level, a Renaissance period which is unmatched as far as I'm concerned. So what do we learn from them? We learn from them that we have a lot to learn and we have a long way to go.
Te Papa Kai Hautu, Dr. Arapata Hakiwai, says the tā moko practitioners will be able to reveal knowledge about the toi moko that researchers would not be able to, even after exhausting all provenance research in archives and records.
When you realise that we have hundreds of our ancestors held in cupboards and shelves and universities and museums, they shouldn't be over there. We should bring them home.
The hope is that through research they will have a far greater understanding of who these tipuna are, so they can be reconnected to their uri whakaheke, their descendants. For Joni Brooking, who has been tattooing for 2 decades, getting the chance to study the toi moko is a new level.
99% of the toi moko have been mataora or, the male facial markings, and so it's been an honour and a privilege to really dig deep into that research.
For those witnessing the results of this research on display, it's taken the art of tā moko to a new level.
RNZ Māori News journalist Pokere Paiwai with that report. In Aotearoa, Tuvalu families have been getting active and going back to their roots for Tuvalu Language Week. Those celebrating in Auckland played ano, a traditional game using 2 balls made of pandanus leaves. Tiana Haxton has more.
There's been a sense of pride among Tuvalu families in New Zealand this week, with cultural traditions front and centre.
Ano brings together people. It's all about coming together as one. It's about resilience. It's about celebrating our language.
Tuvalu Alliance Secretary Asita Moloti says what's been even more special is seeing young ones embrace their heritage.
Because we all talk, the kids, the young parents, they bring their little ones to be there. So it's so happy to see how the ano brings together everyone to celebrate their language.
Ms. Moloti says a dedicated week for Tuvalu language fosters cultural pride among youth who call New Zealand their home away from home.
And how we're so thankful even when we are away from home, especially these young generations, they're still proud to wear their Tuvaluan hats. They're still proud to be Tuvaluans.
She says young ones turned up in full cultural wear to mark the special occasion.
It's a fantastic opportunity for all of us Pacific. Language is our identity. It's a celebration of who we are, the diversity, the resources and things we have in our own communities.
Ano is a fast-paced game similar to volleyball. It uses 2 hard balls made with pandanus leaves. Miss Moloti says ano was invented by her ancestors using natural resources.
It depicts how our ancestors back then, when they don't have any of those balls, the volleyballs, that's what they do with all the natural materials that are available to them. It's made of pandanus leaves, and they put thorns or something inside the middle. And so they weave with using pandanus leaves to actually make the ball bigger, heavier, and also hard.
She says the ancient game is still very much alive. It's commonly played at special occasions and festivals, and with no limit to player numbers, it's open to all.
It depicts inclusiveness, equity as well, because in the end it's up to people. We don't really discriminate people on any grounds. And it brings people together, so it's about enjoying. And also you can see like a little bit of fatale or chance when people win. It's quite exciting for us as Tuvaluans.
Ms. Moloti says the turnout at the Anō Games Day was heartwarming and reaffirmed that Tuvalu language and culture is strong in Aotearoa.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā sui fua.